London, crowded, cosmopolitan, one of the largest cities in the world. Gilbert Bayes' sculptures wander through the bustling city, through luxurious department stores and busy city streets. His works transcend time and capture diverse perspectives. They include everything from characters to fairy tales. From ancient Rome to modern times. From a theatre to a campus. Artistic and educational, brimming with history and beauty. Tucked away on the outskirts of central London is smaller, quieter Town. The town is home to Bayes' works. Doves, ships, and little mermaids tell fairy tales and stories. I was born on this street, Doric Way, where the Drummond estate stands. It is on the corner just behind Euston Station, where the Dove and the Carpenter's Bag reside, where the working class reside.
As a kid, we didn't appreciate them. You know, they were just there. We never thought about them. Growing older, you realise how lucky you were. It's a series of communal washing lines with low finials, each of which has a sculpture of a pigeon on it. In the middle, there's a bag on the taller central finial. The central finial reflects the saint after whom the flats are named. St Joseph was a carpenter, so we have carpenter's tools. Again, it's a reminder of that heritage, which we all grew up in, but which is a culture very much in retreat now. You know, it's ours. It's collectively owned. You know, it belongs to us. I was born in St Joseph's, in a flat just up there. We briefly lived for a number of years in Edith Neville Cottages. Growing up here, it was a very pleasant place to live. We all knew each other, we were mostly related to each other. We all attended the local schools. It was a very coherent community. There is something so wonderful about an ordinary, just working community, where they paid so much attention to the construction of the flats that they even included public art. And the decline of that kind of impetus and movement, this was the only estate we knew in detail. It never even occurred to me other estates might lack this public art. It wasn't until you're a bit older that you realise how lucky you are and how rare it is for, you know, an artist of Gilbert Bayes' calibre to provide art for what's really just a very ordinary community.
Somers Town is a working class area that was once filled with slums in the 1930s. On the corner of Doric Way, a tree-lined lane leads to Phoenix Road. And Charlton Street is right behind them. Where the slums of the past have been replaced by new blocks of public housing. The overcrowded, exhausted and dilapidated housing was torn down, including the former home of Charles Dickens. After spending my early childhood at Drummond Street, I moved to Sydney Estate and never left.
My mum and dad, my grandparents lived in these flats, and my mother and father lived just across the road in Somers Town. I've never thought I've never wanted to move out of Somers Town. I've lived around here all my life, you know, never moved out, and I'm nearly 71 years old. A lot of people have moved out of the area that I knew, but I mean, as I say, there's not a lot of people that are left in my age group that are still here. But other than that, you know, everybody was just playing football really and cricket. We used to play in the back of the flats here, in the big backyard in Sydney Estate. We used to play cricket and football. When I was young, when I was a little boy, I could always remember the sculptures that were in like the Sydney Estate here, where I lived downstairs. There was a load of them. There was quite a few in every little block with different meanings on the top of them, like, you know, cobblers and sailing ships and whatever. But they were a nice thing to look at. They were nice when you was a kid. They had a lovely ring where the people used to hang their clothes on them. They were really a nice thing to look at, like. And downstairs where I live now in St Francis, and we used to play round the flats there. But as I say, I think they somehow they all went missing for some reason, which I believe they were sort of rare things to have. And as I was told, like, they've all vanished into thin air, as you put it. But there you go, you know. That's what happens, isn't it?
This is where the 4 and 20 tailors used to gather. They were all here once, but they all ran away. The only surviving authentic artworks are the ones set into the stone. At the end of the century, the Housing Association removed the statues while renovating the estates. The sculptures became scattered around, and most of them never appeared again. The remaining sculptures are mere replicas, poor substitutes for our lost souls.
People used to socialise a lot more, not just sit indoors. Here you hardly see anybody now. We're out there every weekend, but for all the flats you see very few children out there. And it's sad, I think. There's that lovely space and nobody takes advantage of it. And there's nothing out there, I suppose. Maybe if they didn't want to put tables and things out there because they said they didn't want groups of teenagers sitting out there and taking advantage of it. But now nobody takes advantage of it. It would have been nice, but they didn't listen to what we wanted, I don't think. So everybody knew everybody or was related to everybody. I think the change has been for the worse. What they've done, I think they've ripped the heart out of the estate by taking things away and not preserving things that were here and not encouraging community. There should be more, perhaps more activities that they could lay on. When they were actually doing up the flats, they would have things out there and everybody would be out there, but now there's nothing. Where there was nothing in the middle. There were 4 flower beds on the 4 corners, which were apparently air raid shelters, which we didn't realise until they knocked them down. But they had little benches at the front so people would sit out there. And there were nice trees and plants, flowers. They've even knocked down 2 of the trees recently, I don't know why. Chopped down 2 trees out there. But it seems very barren and empty out there.
I died during that era at the end of the century, during another downturn for the town. Everyone moved away. The town's spirit faded. There were no longer enough houses. Those sculptures died with me, and the community disappeared.
I moved to Somerstown and I stayed in a rented private landlord. I was there till year 2000 and they were renovating the flats then, and I seen the men cutting down fences, and when we asked what was happening to them, they told us that they were cutting them down because of all the work that was going on, which was correct. They were doing an awful lot of work, scaffolding's going up, etc. And they were going to be stored, but they were never replaced. And I believe that they were stolen from there.
July 2023. Museum members are rescuing some of the works by Bayes from the storage room of the Housing Association, where they have slept for decades. The sculptures awakening from their slumber and welcoming their new owners. Two of the sculptures even made it all the way to America, but they are back home again and are safely preserved in the Somerstown Museum. From a faraway continent, the diaspora returns to its hometown, but finds it has lost its home. But what wakes the working class neighbourhoods? Will we become the ashes of history again? Have we been forgotten? I don't know. There are no more fairy tales, only oblivion.
This is St Christopher's house, where there used to be a big circle of the posts with the finials of the birds on the top. The middle one had, the big one in the middle had a pie, which looked like a pineapple to us.
The birds have flown away, but the rhymes from our childhood remain in our memories.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in his counting house, counting out his money. The queen was in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes, when down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 24 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was open, the birds began to sing. Oh, wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? That was it. The king was in his counting house, counting all his money, yeah. The queen was in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden, hanging out the clothes. And down came a blackbird and pecked off her nose.
When looking closely, the dilapidated walls resemble the cracks in the sculptures and the folds of our skin. Look at these hands, these working class hands. The eyes behind the eyeglasses, eyes that had witnessed the march of time. It is me. The sculpture is me. I was there, on top of the posts and embedded in stone, watching over the neighbourhoods, watching the memories. But the ocean of history is too vast, too deep. We are drowned in the sound of demolition, drowned in the chaos of the city.